Alright, so I've imported in all of my meshes. I've set up the options for them and placed them in the scene, so I have everything set up. Now the next thing we need to do is import textures. Obviously we can't have objects looking all gray like this, so we need to start bringing textures and setting up materials for these objects and making the scene look really good. So how are we going to bring in textures? Well, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to come over here to the warehouse folder, and I'm going to go to create. I'm going to go to folder. I'm going to create a new folder and rename it. I'm going to call this one textures. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and drop textures in here. Again, it's the same problem. If I right click and I go to import new asset, okay, and this time I go up to the textures directory instead of meshes, you'll see that I have tons and tons of textures. Lots of textures. Now, if I were to take these textures one by one, because I can't select multiple textures or all of them, it's going to take me forever to import them in. So again, that's not the way to go. Instead, what I want to do is I want to go over to my directory here. I'm going to go to the warehouse assets here. I'm going to go to textures, which is the new folder I created. And then I'm going to go to that directory where we have the game assets. Go to textures. I'm going to select all of these textures and I'm going to copy them over to Unity. But before I do that, I'm going to go back to Unity and I'm going to save the scene out. Okay, it's always good to save, no matter what software you're working in. Always constantly save to make sure that in case there's a crash or anything like that, you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and save by hitting Control S. And where I'm going to save is inside the warehouse folder in my project directory. I'm just going to save right here. It's going to save it as a .unity file, which is a scene file in Unity. Okay, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this warehouse, maybe underscore level. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. And I'll hit save. And now this scene that we're working on here is actually saved, and we can see here that it appeared inside of our project directory in Unity. Okay, pretty cool. All right, so again, go back over here, copy all of these texture files that you see here. And I'm going to go to the textures directory. I'm going to paste them here. Okay, it's going to paste all of these textures, and there's a lot of them. There's 166 different texture maps here. That's a lot. I'm going to import them into Unity. When I go back to Unity, you see Unity automatically detected them and says, okay, I'm going to import all this stuff in for you. Now, because it's a lot of textures, it's going to take a while for Unity to import them in. So that brings me to, back to the whole next-gen topic about assets. When you're working on a complex game like a next-gen game, you're going to be working with lots of assets. Now, this is a simple game example here of this warehouse. For a real production game, you'd have a much bigger level with lots more textures. So this is 166 texture maps. If this was a real level, don't be surprised if it consists of, say, 500 textures or something like that. So it gets pretty big. Just one of the things about working with next-gen games is you're going to be working with lots of assets, so be ready for that. So importing all this stuff is going to take a little while. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop the video, let it import everything in, and I'll meet you back again when this is finished. Right, so that just took a few minutes there. I finally finished importing all those textures in. If I expand the textures folder, you can see that I have all of these different textures in here, and there are a lot of textures. Okay, so if I select any one of these at random, for example, just this warehouse facade A diffuse, I can see that I get a preview of the texture right here. Okay, I also get some information down here as to the resolution of it, the type of texture it is, compression, so on and so forth. And up here in the inspector, what I get myself are some import options for textures. Okay, now a cool thing about Unity is that you can import a wide variety of textures. You can import Photoshop documents, so PSD files. You can import TIFFs, JPEGs, Targas, BMP files, bitmap files, lots of different file formats. If you check out the manual, you can see all the different formats that are supported. Okay, so that's the cool thing. And what it does is it converts the texture and compresses it for Unity. So even if it was a huge, say, 20 megabyte Photoshop document, it'll flatten the layers and it'll compress it so it'll be much smaller, obviously, and more game friendly. Okay, so up here we get ourselves some options here like filter mode, wrap mode, things like that. The texture importer, the main settings down here. So you can choose the texture type. Unity 3 actually made it a little bit more simplified, okay? Basically, it hides a lot of the texture options that used to be here. They're still here. They're just hidden from view so that more basic users can get a hold of this and use it a little bit more efficiently. So you can go up here to the texture type and you can tell Unity what kind of texture you're going to be using this for. And based on your selection, Unity will set up that advanced options so that it can work more as that type of texture. So say, for example, this is coming in as just a texture map, just a color map. I would leave it alone as a texture. If it was coming in as a normal map, I would select normal map. If it was going to be something like, say, a light map, I could choose that. If I want my advanced options, I could choose advanced. And now you can see here all the advanced options pop up. So I'm going to go back to texture. And one of the simple options we could choose here is to generate alpha from grayscale. We'll see later how that works. The main important options here are the max size. So we can change the texture size. So Unity supports a maximum texture size of 4K 4096. You can also go with high-res textures like 2K 2048, 1K 1024, 512, 256, so on and so forth. So you can choose the max texture size. So if this texture, say, in my image editing program was originally 3000 pixels, I could tell Unity to make sure that the biggest it can be is 1024, okay? And of course, because if you put super high-res textures all over the place, your game's going to slow down. You can also choose the format, okay? So just leave it compressed is fine. If you're a more advanced user, you can use the advanced settings and set up all these settings the way that you want. I'm going to leave these at textures. Only on specific special cases will I need to go ahead and change any of the advanced settings. So those are the texture importer settings for Unity. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here, and in the next one we're going to start working with materials and shaders inside of Unity. I'm going to start to show you and introduce you how to use that, how to work with them, and so on and so forth. So I'll see you there.